I'm a very lucky hillbilly, right? I've had three exits from technology or technology-based firms. Grew up in very poor rural Western Kentucky. A single mom with three kids. And so you can imagine, not the easiest thing. Literally in 10th grade, the principal said, I can't spank you anymore, right?
Welcome back, investor, to another episode of Passive Income Adventures, where we want you to go on more adventures and we help you figure out how to pay for it. And Jeff Arnold, today, our guest, has done that in real life more than once. I love the stories where you go through that you were talking about, like you lost everything and then you realized the value of what you had and then putting that back together. And I think that's such a compelling story for people who are chasing this lifestyle, Jeff, because you've done it twice and you really know what's important and what's not important. So thank you for coming on today and sharing your story.
Emma, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so very much for having me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed when I was on your podcast after, I guess, in the green room after the recording, we were chit chatting about, what our point is, like what we're doing in life. And you said something that really caught me about how you're in the giving back phase of your life. Because I think we were talking about sometimes you go on a podcast either to promote your own business, your own product, your own thing, or even you'll guest on somebody's podcast and you're on their podcast so they can pitch you their product. And we were just talking about how so we're just giving back and we want to pay it forward and all that kind of stuff. And your story it just really stuck with me. And I thought, this is a passive income adventure story. I want people on the podcast who are either trying to do it or have already done it. And a lot of times we get our heads down in our business and the hustle phase and we forget like we're supposed to be planning for the future. And your story, I think, is going to really resonate with the audience. So jump in,
Or
tell us where you're from, your background, your story, your pivot point where you're a normal person and then you're not a normal person.
Yeah, we'll unpack it all. We'll whet your listeners' appetites with a few key phrases for clarity, right?
Yeah.
To draw people in. And I'm a very lucky hillbilly, right? I've had three exits from technology or technology-based firms, but life was not always that way. I'll do the truncated version. So grew up in very poor rural Western Kentucky. A single mom with three kids. And so you can imagine, not the easiest thing. And in that day, because I'm an aged man, they didn't give you Adderall. They just spanked you. And then being the horrible student I was, literally in 10th grade, the principal said, I can't spank you anymore, right? But you cannot come back to school here. And so I had to find another school and another one. So long story short, I was a horrible student. Today we would give them Adderall, which I've done for one of my children. It's night and day. But then I was just lucky to get out. And the option for me was to join the military, which changed everything for me. Just 3 short years. And I don't think it was the military, was just the discipline and the physical exercise that forced me to focus a little more and rewire my brain, for lack of a better word. And after that, I got we'll just call it the thespian bug, because I love to do stage work. I love acting. And then I got the business bug to entrepreneurial. We'll pivot straight into the business side. When I left stage work and acting in my mid-20s, I answered an ad. Wait, I don't want to lose your listeners because I'm going to say a word that they're going to roll their eyes and, dear God, yawn. I answered an ad that said insurance salesman wanted, but wait,
Yeah.
there's more, right? I know to you, it's boring and oh my God, insurance. To me, it became the industry of all things sexy, fun, exciting, and just plain awesome. I know it's amazing for people, but if you're blessed with the gift of gab and you have the ability to help people who, by the way, don't think twice about it, but you're going to pay most people more than 500,000 over their lifetime for all their insurance, many close to 1 million, depending on your success. And so I know everyone just says it's something that I pay and don't think about. But for me, I was able to build several pretty large companies on educating people that, like anything else, these are legal contracts and you get what you pay for. And again, we don't want to talk about insurance and bore everyone, but it helped me create North America's most awarded insurance firm. We helped people with all things insurance and bought 40 other firms and 3 insurance companies during the time. So that's part of the entrepreneurial journey there, from hillbilly in a trailer to really one of the fastest growing insurance firms in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Okay, so I get where you're coming from because I just recently had an exchange with one of my daughter's friends' dads. So we're sitting at an event, and she starts talking to him about his career. Oh, your daughter told me you did this or that. And he starts talking and he said he moved to Texas to become a football coach because Texas, the mecca of football. And he goes, and it was a disaster. Not really cut out for it. So he answered an ad that said insurance sales person wanted. And he was like, oh man, he felt like he was desperate and he was so sad, the football thing. And then he said, I basically buy insurance companies that are doing whatever, 5 million a year in revenue or whatever it was. And we get them better systematized, more efficient, and then we sell them when they're about 10 to 15 million a year in revenue. And I sat back and I looked at him and I said, wait a second. So what I do with apartment buildings, you do with insurance companies. He was like, yeah, basically, like we do the same thing. And they even have a FINRA license. And he says, I have told my kids, do you want to go to college and graduate $80,000 in debt? Or do you want to get your Series 63 and be a millionaire by the time you're 25? And my daughter was just like, I vote for second. Like, what license is this that I need? And he said, I actually have an office in your hometown and you want to go apply. And so now my kids are like insurance sales.
Yeah,
So it's funny that
it's
you mentioned that because it can be a great business for the people who have a passion for the product and have sales skills. So I love that because I think that sometimes we don't really realize just what a great career that can be or a great business it can be.
Yeah, it's true. Let's unpack just for a second for any of your listeners that they might not have an entrepreneurial bit. That also, the insurance industry invests in apartment and habitational rest. They build hotels, they build malls all over. So they really invest in communities with your premium dollars, of course, because they aggregate and invest and get a return.
Mhm.
It's about the industry. You don't have to be an extrovert or have the gift of gab or love the theater to be great. The industry, if you like legal contracts or you're a lawyer, have a paralegal bit, that's what the whole industry does is design, build, and sell legal contracts. So you like numbers and coaching numbers. Actuary guys are some of the smartest guys in the world. It's true they're introverted and they're looking at their own shoes when they're talking to you, but they're really smart and the industry needs lots of them. Tesla's hiring hundreds now. And then if you really like helping people at their most difficult time in life, that's at claims time. That's a great
Mhm.
empathetic calling for you. So not a whole pitch for the industry itself, but I thought we might as well just unpack it because it's a great industry. And then for those that are extroverted, you can make it a tremendous amount of money, like in any job in sales. The difference is this is a recurring thing. Like you'll continue to get paid on it year after year. So sorry about the segue there, Emma, but
No.
it's
No, I feel like this podcast really it has almost a dual purpose where we want to help investors to think ahead of time, like how am I going to set aside money in great investments so that I can plan for a future where I'm not working till I'm 65, right? People are like, I never want to retire. I'm like, yeah, but you should be able to just in case, or if you feel like it, or whatever. But the other bend is that we have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to the show, and I like to give them great business content so that they can go kill it in their business and then invest the excess. And the more you're making in business or the more efficiently you can run your business, the more excess you have to be able to go invest. And then once you get to that point where you have that excess, then where you are, where you're talking about, now what do I do? How do I give back? And I mean, my first job actually was cold calling for an insurance salesperson. I walked into his office. My sister had done cold calling for somebody that she knew. She said, it's an easy job. They hire anybody. So I walked in, I said, hey, can I give you some cold calls? And he was like, yeah, if you can get me leads that I can prepare quotes for, I'll pay you XYZ for a number of leads you got. So I'd go in a couple times a week after school when I was in high school, and I would just sit there for a couple hours and call leads. And I had a great success rate because they're like, yeah, sure, I'll take a free quote and see if you can save me some money on my whatever. And then my sister, when she got out of college, she was actually an insurance adjuster after she got her business degree for several years. And so to me, I hear that the more wealthy I become, the more insurance I need, and the more insurance becomes a part of my plan with cash value life insurance, with umbrella policies, like things that I didn't really think about before we built wealth. And it's a huge part of the plan. And whether we're using it as a customer or we're doing this as a business, we can learn a lot from it. So it's definitely not an aside, but now I digress. But
well, you're going to continue to surrender, no matter who you are, a significant amount of your income to premiums for your entire life. So you might as well know. We'll package this part up with just a quick statement that if you take nothing else away from this part of the conversation is two quick things. The number one mistake most consumers make when purchasing these legal contracts as insurance is the belief that all products are the same and it's only differentiated by price, right?
mm,
That is the dumbest, most idiotic thing that companies are spending billions to think, I just call and shop, you'll save. If it's cheaper, there's a reason. Let me just posit this like this. If you buy your significant other a G-Wagon versus a Hyundai, you're going to pay more for that G-Wagon, right? Versus, of course, if you take her out for a nice dinner, him or her out for a nice dinner, that's going to cost more than Subway. Insurance is the exact same. So if
Mm.
you're getting it really cheap, you're probably surrendering coverage. And that's fine as long as my educational part in give back is just let people know, hey, buy the agent, not the insurance, buy somebody who's educated that. And B, you're buying a legal contract. You're going to get what you pay for. You should know that before claims time. So that's my public service announcement for the industry. How's that?
Yeah, and it's really important as investors are looking, especially investing with real estate, like what we do, that somebody on the team knows how to evaluate and purchase the correct policy because we have buildings burned down. I don't know very many people who've had their houses burned down, but pretty much every investor that I know has had a building burn, including me at a certain point in time. And then you find out, oh, well, code upgrades are not covered. So even though they can put it back together, they actually can't until they upgrade all your old stuff with code and insurance. That's coming out of your pocket. Being able to read and put together a policy, someone on the team, because what can make or break one of these real estate deals is property taxes being miscalculated, a loan that's not flexible, that doesn't work or grow, and the insurance being off. And not only can it hurt if you're paying too much on the policy on the front end, but it also can hurt if you're not covered appropriately on the back end. So just being able to ask who on this investment team, who on this property can read, understand, and put these policies together is just vital for any investor to make sure somebody's got their eye on that because it is one of the largest expenses on the types of investments that we do. And so I've learned more about insurance over the last couple of years than I ever thought I would know, even though my first job was in insurance. It's just so important. All right.
It's it's
Little
very true
educational
too.
corner.
Yeah, one more quick thing there, because again, I love this subject. Is we in one of my books, How to Beat Your Insurance Company, or we tell the main message of that is stop asking how much and start asking what's not covered, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just trying to drill down to the bottom dollar. There's exclusions in every policy. I don't care. There's no such stupid thing as full coverage. If people throw that word, you want to stab them if you've been in the industry long enough. It's like coverage doesn't exist. No one's buying all the coverages available. What you want to change from, instead of asking how much, is what's excluded and what's not covered. So we'll just end
Mm.
that segment there. Sorry, because I could geek out about it forever. But again,
Yeah.
you get what you pay for. You're going to pay a lot anyway. You should stop the drive straight to the bottom line of the price and learn what's not covered.
Yeah, I would love to circle back around to this
Yeah.
in the future segment here about what's going on in the insurance industry right now that is causing so much pain in people's lives. But that's another thing. I actually want to first ask you, okay, so everything's going great. You've got this company, you're feeling like $1 zillion and probably pretty smart. And then what happens?
Yeah, so I was fortunate. Like everybody, you need capital, right? You always have to have more capital to make these acquisitions. And in 99 and 2000, was internet bust, and I'd exited a small internet startup or technology startup, still doing insurance always. And come 99, 2000, mortgage firms are growing like wildfire. And this firm kept calling me. It turns out pretty large firm, 36 billion in originations. And so finally I sold to them. It was fantastic. We grew from a couple hundred to 5,200 employees. It was great. I ended up running 6 divisions. Enter 2007 and 2008, the Great Recession, or whatever you want to call it. Everybody's pulling lines of credit. August 15th, 2007, we have 5,212 employees. August 16th, we're bankrupt.
Yeah.
The effects over a 48-hour period, really, starting August 14th, these banks started pulling lines of credit. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, we don't have any credit.
Wow.
Banks are going out of business. There's a run on the treasury. It's again, I didn't know that was the end. We just kind of, everybody, I wasn't the only executive, right? Lots of executives. So we wind down the company through bankruptcy. Lo and behold, there was all kinds of frivolous and ludicrous accusations that there was absconding or whatever. I ended up getting sued for $1 billion. And if you've ever been sued, you lay awake at night going, holy cows.
Yep.
But let me assure you, if you're sued for $1 billion, you don't go to sleep at night. You just figure out how my kid's going to eat, what I'm going to do. And over the course of 3 years, I ended up losing everything I'd ever made up until that point. And I was a very fortunate hillbilly, as I said, living the life of Riley, especially way far from the starting of Western Kentucky in a trailer. And so I started over really at 42 years old, having lost everything, plus being sued for $1 billion. That was 3 years to unwind it. And it was a nightmarish 3 years. And I started over in, wait for it, the great industry known as insurance again. So from scratch again. And we built North America's most awarded insurance firm right out of it. And then I'll pivot a little bit. Since then, I've gone into writing books. I have 10 books. And then I own a couple soccer teams, some minor and a pro team that I'm exiting. in the middle of exiting now. So I love sports, love football, the real football, not the Texas kind. Just kidding. I know it's a religion there. And just super passionate about what's happening for women in sports. And I don't mean basketball, women soccer, real football. Women's soccer is exploding the world over. It's a great opportunity for young ladies to have a growth pattern and not just stop at high school, go to college and come out of college and do something. I love the quality of it all. And then there's new leagues coming out that are mandating that women are paid the same as men as a percentage of ticket sales. I'd like that. Are they ever going to make as much? No, I'm sorry, not until they sell as much. But the fact that there's a mandate that says it's a percentage of ticket sales, and in an league called United Soccer League, that the women earn as much as the men as a percentage. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, very interesting. I actually am one of the investors, so junior owners, we're going to call it. I know what I am. I'm a limited partner in the Utah Warriors rugby team. I was actually the first, I have to say this, it's long. I was the first I was the first player on the first high school girls rugby team in the US. And I did not know this until I was like 40, because at the time I didn't know that there were no other girls high school rugby teams. There was a boys team, and I went out for the boys team, and the next year they started a girls team. And so that was kind of news to me. My old coach looked me up when he saw that I had invested in the Utah team, and he said, "Did you XYZ that you had this thing?" I was like, "I'm totally getting that on a tattoo." And so I agree, but the business of sports, I don't think that people respect it as much as they should. That like these are feeding families. You watch a movie, say Moneyball or something. There are real families behind these businesses, and the marketers, this people who are working behind the general managers. It's not just the athletes. But one thing I've really found a lot of joy in, and maybe you're finding something similar in your role, is these young athletes, especially in not top tier sports, and they're not making that much money, but they are putting in just as much grit and effort and mental energy and time and their physical safety into these sports, and mentoring them through the entrepreneurial or the investing journey has been very rewarding for me personally. And I would love to do that a little bit in a wider sense, especially the lacrosse players or the D League hockey or something like that. So how do you integrate that into what you're doing now? Because you lost what you had, you went out and you rebuilt it because you didn't lose the knowledge that you had. You went and rebuilt it, and then you were able to start thinking in different ways and doing different things. So tell me more about what that looks like.
Yeah, the number one pivot, Emma, was to be completely transparent and open, is I was just shoving stuff into my life during that phase, right? Oh my
Mhm.
God, I must have this. I need another car. And why would I fly commercial? Let's get a second jet. Just so shallow and so consumed
Mhm.
with more and more, right? I had such an avarice appetite for more, or keeping up with the Joneses, right? Somebody else got this or I got that. And I'm really quite ashamed of it as I look back. I don't like that person, but when you come from nothing and all of a sudden you're talking commas and two commas and an income, whatever, it's easy to get caught up in it. One of the greatest, most difficult things that ever happened in my life was losing it all and starting over, right? The most awesome thing of it all is to be married to the same woman who had to downsize and lose all of her credibility and status in the community or whatever when her husband
Mhm.
front pages of papers of being crucified or whatever. But what was most awesome about that is at a time when I was at my lowest, my partner, my wife, the mother of my 4 kids said, "You're Jeff Arnold. You've done it once. You'll do it again. Don't worry about it." Men need to hear that. Not that women don't. Sometimes we need to be at the front and we need you behind to say, "You're the leader." I needed that. And that's what it was for me. And so again, it was 3 horrible, tumultuous years, but I'm like, if your spouse is behind you and not fighting against you, she's with you and she believes in you, hell yeah, right? And then
Yeah.
fast forward, it was like when we did it again, I'm like, I don't need jets. I don't need all this excess stuff. I don't need expensive watches or Gucci shirt. I don't need that in my life. And so when I stopped chasing things, and I know a lot of people say they don't, look, I like nice things. I have a nice house. I like books more than things now. But the point is, by the grace of God, I was given the ability to understand that you had what most people want and it didn't make you happy. You just wanted more, right?
Mhm.
Avarice, greed, appetite, guilt. You wanted more. And having gone through and lost it all, not only do you realize who your true friends are because your fake friends are gone. When you can't do something for people that you've been doing for forever, they leave you like that, right? You
Yeah.
find out what your real love is or who your real friends and real family are because you're no longer a meal ticket for them, or they have to sacrifice to be around you. So that's powerful. And then to know that stuff doesn't make the man, right? No matter what you own or what you live in or what you drive, it doesn't define you and it doesn't make you who you are.
Oh, it's so true because people tell us that now all the time. It's like, "Oh, you guys are living the dream. You've retired on passive income and traveling full time." And I'm like, look, we just barely hit this threshold. Our cash flow sucks. We have a whole new set of problems that we didn't even know existed before we started this lifestyle. And I realized, yeah, we are living the dream, but at the same time, it's like, am I any happier now than I was before? And the answer was sadly and ashamedly no. So for the last year, I've really been putting a lot of effort into raising my base level of happiness because that's a conscious process. It's almost like going to the gym to get bigger muscles. I have to do these particular things and think these particular ways to be able to raise that consciousness or raise that vibration or whatever you want to call it, to say, I am actually happier now than when I achieved something because I decided and I worked on it. And is that kind of what you're saying, that you just got to the point where you're like, this isn't making me happier. What will? So what was really the key for you there?
Yeah, I think part of it is too that we have to insert religion into the conversation. So I grew up in the church, Western Kentucky. Everyone goes to small Southern Baptist churches, and supposedly had this foundation that wasn't about stuff and about a
Mhm.
bigger picture or a greater thing in the universe, God, Mother Nature, whatever you subscribe it to. For me, it was God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And so I had that foundation, but when you're tempted with a little bit and a little turns into a lot of turns into a gargantuan amount, it's really easy to lose yourself. It was for me
Mm.
anyway. I didn't have that foundation as solid as I thought, because all of a sudden I was like, I know this stuff, but I want this shiny, sparkly thing and I want to travel this way. And so it wasn't that I started out just wanting all that because I had a good foundation, but when you get a taste of it, you want more. And I tell you, the number one, just being again super transparent, is, and letting my ego all bear here, is I used to walk into a room or a place and want people to see me or think how esteemed he is or how successful he is. I walk into a place now, and my number one goal is to get eye contact from somebody at the counter or somebody that's waiting on me or somebody I'm talking to, and just understand where they're at in their life. I don't worry about what they think about me or see me. Even if I'm invisible to them, I try to get into their space, invade their space a little bit, get some deep connectivity and eye contact with them, because that fuels all of us up, right? If you're having a problem with your spouse at dinner time, put down the phones and get 30 to 60 seconds of just consistent eye contact with them. You guys get aligned really quick. So that's where I'm at now. Not more stuff, but more connections. And
Mm.
part of it is this give back thing. If I can open doors for people, which I've been wildly fortunate to do because I'm not seeking anything in return, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, energy just responds. There's 1,000 doors I can open for people. So it's a little bit of a tangent there, but that's what was bubbling up in me.
Oh, that's such good stuff because I like to talk, right? But I'm not an extrovert. I'm an introvert who likes to spend a lot of time alone. I have 6 children and I feel like I haven't been alone in 25 years. So for me, when I hear people talk about like that deeper connection, all that, I'm like, I've got connections coming out my ears. Can I have less connections, please? Because now we're both also from large families, and now I have so many colleagues, investors, and partners. And I feel like people are coming out my ears. And I again had to go through a conscious, almost mechanical process to say, I want to expand my ability to have connection in my life. Because right now I just am shrinking from it. I want to be alone all the time. But to say, I can do this. Like I can go to the gym to build bigger muscles. Again, I can do the emotional work to be able to have more people in my life, more connections, and even deeper connections than I ever thought possible. And so that thought process and then doing the work that it takes to expand that, it sounds like that you've had that realization because now you have before and after to compare it to. Is that, I don't know, have you ever thought about it quite like that? Or how do you think about that process of connection? Or are you just an extrovert who just loves being around people?
Yes and no. People, it can drain you, right? I too crave solitude, right?
Mhm,
All man's misery is a result of him not being able to spend time alone with his thoughts. Her
mhm.
thoughts too. I don't mean to be sexist. It's just a
Yeah,
philosophic quote, right? And you just have to be aware these days, right? You going to
yeah.
offend somebody. learn.
We have a past. You said something about women's soccer and all that, so you're good now.
I'm not at Emma's level. I have 4 kids who teach me that I know nothing. But anyway,
Yeah.
I love being an extrovert. I too crave solitude, and because I'm such an empath, you probably just want to give. I have to force myself, and everyone has their own model, and it's tough because life comes at you, and you got to be flexible. But my Mondays, my week doesn't start without me having an hour to myself. No phone, no computer, no interruptions. Like this office here in my home, I come in, meditate, to-do lists, whatever it is, but it is not interrupted with technology. It is not talking to people. It's what I want to do this week. What am I trying to do in life? And that guaranteed 1 hour of solitude sometimes rolls into 90 minutes, sometimes 2 hours, but no one can reach me. It's like I don't exist. And that's powerful because again, you have 6 children. There's no alone time. Same for my wife. You have to create that. You have to carve it out. For you, it's the gym. For me, I just need to be alone with my thoughts because thoughts are things and I give life to them. I breathe them. And then sometimes I just need to reassure myself that all is going to be all right. I have a bent to seeing things implode like they did when I was. So I got you've created this life with lots of help and everything's going to be okay.
Okay, so you said something there that caught my attention. I have talked to investors on the show before, and the topic of hyper diversification has come up. Because you have so many little drip drop investments spread out across too many things. It's too much to track. It's very time consuming to vet these things. So you should be writing bigger checks so that you're not spending so much time vetting it out. That's what institutional investors do. But sometimes retail investors have a tendency to hyper diversify. And what was really interesting is I said, why are you spending all that time on it? And he was like, a couple of them told me, I just really like it. It's like my hobby, it's my pastime, it's my job. Even though I'm retired, this is what I do. And one time, somebody more or less, it's a scarcity mindset. I hyper diversify because I'm always afraid that something's going to implode because living through 2008 basically scarred me. And so even though I had a lot of money before then and I have a lot of money now, I just can't kick that scarcity mindset. So how do you handle that? Because it sounds like your abundance mindset originally was like an Achilles heel. And now you're like, yeah, I got to make sure nothing implodes. So how do you stay positive and abundance minded when you all know that you can lose it all again tomorrow?
Yeah, it can happen. And one of the things, certainly you worry about it, right? Because although, again, I don't need things in my life, we all know, again, this is a sexist comment, men keep score by money, right? Not that women don't, right? But that's how men keep score. But I literally, I don't have to have had the newest, latest, and greatest and be seen as successful. I know this, that I'm well diversified, right? In super conservative stuff, super aggressive stuff. I'm on the boards of a couple private equity firms and venture capital firms. I'm sorry, 2. I don't want to overstate that.
Yeah.
And so I see a lot of deals and I see a lot of habitational investment stuff come through. And I'm just very focused on a 40-30-30 rule, right? Where I
Mhm.
want 30, but everyone has their own model. So I'm not saying adopt mine, but 30% of my assets are going to be so conservative, they're boring. And I know people are like, they can get more than 3%. Yeah, I'm getting it on the other 70%. But this, and then 30's got to play. I don't want to, just invest in startups. It's a little more risky, but I'll do some VC stuff and some
Mhm.
Series A and Series B stuff. And then the other is in habitational or institutional investment stuff. So again, not pitching that role for everyone. You need to come to grips with your own diversification and what you want. I will say this, one of the greatest things about money, other than it doesn't care who owns it and it'll do exactly what you tell it to.
Yeah.
One of the other things is about teaching my children how to invest. And shameless plug for my other book, Money Secrets. Money Secrets is my biggest selling book of all time. And it really just teaches this generation, we'll just say 23 and younger, who didn't have home ec, or they weren't taught good interest versus bad interest. They weren't taught
Yeah.
the rule of 72 or the 4%. Well, they weren't taught any of that. They're taught stuff that doesn't matter. And luckily, most of my family is homeschooled, so they're getting some good stuff, but some, because there's just a difference, right? I'm a firm believer in homeschooling, and it's a lot of people think it's just people sitting around reading the Bible. That's whatever your version is, but it's really sophisticated, intentional learning. At any rate, the money piece, again, several things about it. Doesn't care who owns it, do exactly what you tell you. But teaching my kids is here's a style of cash. You can't buy anything with it but stocks. Go invest in something. And I tell them, and this is just a good lesson, Don't buy looking for the biggest return. Buy something that you use all the time. So you're engaged in it, you're committed to it. And so you'll read the annual report, you'll be involved in the voting and the proxy stuff. And of course, one bought Apple and he's done very well. One bought Sony, he's doing okay. One is bought into makeup because that's her thing. It's the makeup firms and Kylie Jenner stuff or whatever. But it's allowed them to have a different relationship with money than just spending it. When they see
Mhm.
the power of dividends or a reinvested returns, that changes people's mindset, right? You only have to start getting dividends for probably a year or get a return on your investment before you're like, yeah, don't need that latte, don't need that Gucci shirt, don't care about the Prada bag. I want more dividends, right? Oh,
Yes.
good to watch.
Yeah, my kids, we bought a mobile home together when they were like 14 and
14.
17, I want to say. And so they were getting a couple $100 a month of basically passive income. It was a rent to own mobile home situation. And they said it ruined them because they're like, I get this $200 a month that pays my phone or my whatever, but it's not enough to, and I don't want to work anymore because I know this is a real thing. And I know I have to work to get more money to invest in more of this stuff. But oh my goodness, it's just so nice to just have passive income. I'd be so lazy. And I'm like, maybe we started a little too young. I don't know. Have you seen? I mean, my kids are homeschooled too, so we really do put a focus on entrepreneurship and investing. And sometimes they're into it, and sometimes they're like, "Mom, stop! Can we just read the Bible, please?"
No, true.
So
Absolutely right. But just
yeah,
a quote from Rockefeller. Again, it's pretty greed and avarice based, but it was in his end days. He says, "What's brought me the most joy in my life? Pause to watch my dividends come in." So that, so, so like your greatest joy, you've had a family, you've created this thing. Your greatest joy is to watch your dividends come in, but it is highly addicting, as right.
yeah, and they credit it with destroying their work ethic, and I'm like, "No, it was supposed to whet your appetite for more." They're young, they got time. Give you time to get over
Absolutely.
it. I would love to have you back on in maybe a couple months or a year to just go deeper into some of these topics that we didn't get to today. Because my kids are all homeschooled, you know, that journey and how that has affected my ability to run a business and the confidence that I can go and do something weird, and there are resources and people out there that can help to guide me, and I'm not worried. It has raised my risk tolerance because some people would think what the way I'm doing it is specifically is very risky because, it's weird and nobody else does it like that. But I surrounded myself with a group of people who are doing it the same way and learned sitting at their feet to teach me and watching their young adult children when my kids were small, like this will work. So for me, it's really given me a lot of confidence in entrepreneurship. I have a newsletter on LinkedIn that's called the Homeschooling Entrepreneur that's basically about if you want freedom from through entrepreneurship and investing, consider homeschooling as a way to add on to that freedom that you're already enjoying. I came at it from the other way around. I was a homeschooler first, and that gave me confidence to run a business. So many lessons there, but I have to shift gears. Tell me about what you're up to now. If someone goes to jeffarnold.com, like what would they find and what lights you up today?
Thank you so much. I am winding down my investments in soccer, right? Because it needs somebody that can give it 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And
Yep.
I love it, but I'm trying to do too many things in my life. And chief of which is spend more time with my kids. I have one in Poland who just finished his PhD. He's going to live in Warsaw. And so we always just shut down for 3 months and go to Europe in the summer and travel with the kids. So that's number one, and fortunate to be able to do that. X in soccer. At the Jeff Arnold piece, it's really just give back. Of course, 9 or 10 of my books are on there, but it's really about I have a little podcast show there that I'm so fortunate. I'm booked until October. Really. I do
Oh, wow.
18 a week and I'm already booked till October because it's no agenda. I'm not seeking hold or guests, sorry, to pitch something to or for them to pitch something to me. I'm just trying to open doors and talk about people shaping industries, right? You're a Renaissance woman. You've done so much with curating these 6 lives that give them a different viewpoint than anyone else because homeschooling is just fantastic. And they've seen their mom run an enterprise and their dad do it. And a 40-hour job for them is going to be like prison. They're like, no way. I want to
Yeah.
be like my mom and dad.
Yeah.
And that's cool. So you can give back. And my way of giving back is opening doors for people that it's just amazing, right? The whatever you want to call it, the universe, the spiritual blessings that happen when you're seeking nothing in return and you can help people and there's nothing you want from them financially. You just a thank you. It just fills you up. It's great. And of course, the university awards me in many ways, right? I can't imagine. I'll just brag for 1 second. There was a whole bunch of graduations. I spoke at Brandeis University in Boston for some graduate students. Then I was asked to speak to some other graduating classes. These people are buying hundreds of my money secret books for these college graduates. I didn't go pitching them or anything, but the universe responds with thousands and thousands of books being sold without me saying anything. Sorry, another tangent, but that's just, I'm in awe of how everything works when you just surrender and let go and be at peace with where you're at.
Yeah. You've had a wide variety of experiences. And even though you mentioned at the beginning, it's money ruined you for a little while because you're being greedy and you want the Prada and you want the Rolex and all that. Yet at the same time, it's opened so many doors for you now in like version 2.0 or 3.0 of your life to be able to say you can self-fund a business if you wanted to. You can go and invest in the things you want to, and you have the money to be able to just I don't know. I don't know exactly what I'm asking here. Do you know what I'm trying to get at where it's like not making money the center of your universe, but recognizing the power of money to really allow you to have so many great experiences that now you have these wonderful stories and ways that you can help people. Like, how do you balance those two things?
Yeah, first of all, it absolutely matters. It's not, I don't want money. That's not true. I'm not chasing it like it was, but you have to have it, right? I have 4
Mhm.
kids. I got graduate schools and PhDs and a wife that loves to travel. And so you need it. But when it's not I don't go work a 15-hour day trying to increase my net worth everyone. I'm at peace with what it is. And I know I'm fortunate that a lot of people like, yeah, because you've got this, but I've lost it all and did it again. So you can do it if you're intentional and devoted to it. And
Mhm.
then one of the things I've tried to teach my kids is, look, you're going to have different relationships with several things. And one of those is about money. And here's my relationship with money, right? It will do what you tell it to, and it'll make you more if you don't spend it, right? So you need to be conservative with it, and don't buy a house to impress somebody, don't buy a car to impress somebody. Buy a house that you need to live in, and buy a car that you can afford without blinking an eye, right? So that
Yeah.
matters. People get car rich and house rich really quick, and that destroys their free cash flow, like you were talking about. It ruins them. And then when we continue that real quick, I tell my kids, this is my relationship with God, right? You have to choose your own, but this is my relationship with sex. Yours is going to be different. This is my relationship with drugs. Scared to death, never done them because I am crazy without 'em. This is my relationship with alcohol. I've overdone it many times and embarrassed myself. Ashamed to say it, but it's true, right? This is my relationship with cigarettes, whatever. Never done it. So I can't, if I just force my relationship on them, they're going to find out on their own. So I just tell them, here's my relationship with these things. And then we can have an open conversation about your relationship with money seems to be like you need a new iPhone every year to impress somebody, or you want this new sports car that a 23-year-old doesn't really need to have. That's fine. It's your relationship. But I'm just saying you're sacrificing stuff in the future because you don't have the cash now. Again, one of the greatest gifts that I can give to my kids and the next generation is maybe not teach them, but tell them my relationship with
Mm.
it, so they have an alternative viewpoint on how they see it.
Okay. That's spoken like a true homeschooler because when I try and teach, it's seen as unsolicited advice, aka criticism. They don't want any part of it. I mostly just explain what I'm feeling and what I'm going through. And a lot of times I'm still trying to teach and give them unsolicited advice and they're mad at me, right? It's always a balancing. It's a tricky line to watch. But my daughter recently, her iPad's just chugged out and she needs an iPad to run her business. And we don't buy that stuff for her. And she paid her own money for that. And she smashed it and she had to buy a new one. And this new. So she basically bought two. And then this one's chugging out. And she was crying sitting in the mall at the Apple store because they couldn't fix it. They were going to basically turn it into junk and she had to buy a new one. And I said, how are you going to pay for it? What are you going to do? She says, I have the money in my emergency fund, but I don't want to spend it.
I love her. Look what you've done. Like, how
Yeah,
many
and
kids can say that, right?
yeah,
You've created this wonderful human being that is like, I don't want to spend. You
I said,
win. You
but
won.
yeah, but then there's that scarcity mindset. I realize like that I'm teaching her my relationship with money is a fear. Like I built it and now I'm trying to grow it because we're not anywhere near where we need to be financially that way. But I'm afraid I'm going to lose it because it's 2024 and everybody's talking about the interest rate crisis and the foreclosures and the commercial real estate's going to. So it's scary to me because I have this fear. And I just looked at her and I said, why do you have the emergency fund? And she goes, to take care of emergencies. I said, what is this going on right now? You don't have an iPad. You have outstanding contracts you need to fulfill and this is an emergency. She's, yeah, it's an emergency. I said, so what are you going to do? She's like, spend my emergency fund on an emergency. And I thought, okay, have I given her an abundance mindset here? I've taught her good stewardship. And now, like at a certain point, you got to spend it. So it seems like you've hit a nice spot in your life where you're not too scared to lose it. You're not even going to spend it.
True. I'm fortunate to touch the next generation and probably my grandchildren too, and hopefully great grandchildren. And that's rare. I know that's not everyone. And again, it's not boasting or bragging, but anyone can do it. Maybe we write a book on that. But the other times is when I get overwhelmed, like anyone, no matter what you have. Others, some have more. Is that it's another philosophical quote? I think I'm grounded in philosophy and religion. Is there are no ordinary moments, right? So just embrace this. And for your daughters, this is not an ordinary moment. But guess what? You have an emergency fund. So you get to
Hmm.
get through this. For some people wouldn't be able to do that. So let's share in this little blessing. And then also, this too shall pass, right? No matter how bad it was. For 3 years of being sued for $1 billion and
Oh boy.
losing everything and not being able to sleep, this too passed.
That I mean, when you said I've been sued for $1 million, and I'm like, no, wait, he just said that with a B. That's a B, $1 billion.
Really,
Like that's another story right there. We get to maybe, like I said, we have you back on in 6 months or 12 months and get into some of these
fantastic.
other things. You shared so much great value with us today on our attitudes towards money. One thing I like to do on this show is not just inspire people, because I feel like if you inspire people without teaching them, they're just frustrated. So, what could you boil down to financial tips, since this is basically a financial lifestyle podcast, on how to, as an actionable insight that you have on people's finances so that they can have too much and test themselves of seeing if they can handle having too much. That's really what everybody wants to do, is have so much that they have to wonder if it will change them. So what's your biggest piece of advice there?
Been there, done that. And don't we all want that, right? It's commercialism on steroids. That is America. I can just tell you from someone who's been there. And again, I'm not braggadocious about this all, but private jets, five-star resorts, travel, or just people waiting on you hand and foot, never having to drive a car for a year because we had drive. It seems braggadocious. It is not. It is it is inspiring and it's intoxicating, but it is very lonely and the people around you are not real. That was my
Mhm.
life anyway. And admittedly, I know you know in your heart that's how people keep score and that's how you're revered and looked up to. And I would submit to you that those people are fake and you don't want their admiration, you don't want their reverence because it is shallow. And so that being said, make sure you're chasing the right thing. However, you do need money, you do need cash. That's how we keep score. And you cannot continue to acquire and accumulate more if your want outpaces your need, right? So
Mm.
biggest part of growing a nest egg or wealth is to just start sacrificing. Every great relationship with your spouse or your children requires compromise. Your relationship with growing a wealth, creating wealth requires compromise on if you buy the things you want, then you won't have the money for the things you need.
I've never really thought about it like that before, because it's a hard sell anytime you tell somebody they need to sacrifice. Like, you need to live below your means. Building wealth is simple. Earn as much money as you possibly can in a skill that rewards you. That's why I'm no longer a photographer. I'm a fund manager, that because even though I love photography, I also love real estate. Which one makes more money? Imma go
Real
do the real estate thing. If music or photography made more money, I'd be doing that, but I picked the one that I had a passion for, that had the largest capacity, and then I live below my means. It's very simple. But what you just said there, it's like you understand you have to make sacrifice for your health. You have to make sacrifices for any relationship with yourself or with your spouse or with your children. So the way you talked about money, that you have a relationship with money, we say those words. But to talk about treating that money the same way that you would treat a human in your life, that you have to have respect for it, and make sacrifices for it, but yet at the same time, don't let it take you over and take over your identity any more than you would allow a spouse or even a business to take you over. So I don't know if I've encapsulated what you just said there, but I've never really thought
No,
about your relationship that way.
sounds accurate. And it's easy to hear this and digest this, but then the little greed monster sits back on your shoulders. A brand new Tesla is not that much. Or do you really want to fly 3 hours on commercial when you could fly private? You know what I mean? It's just always there, never goes away. But
Yes.
push that down, right? Look at it like this. I know this will be quite controversial, but let's say that another attractive person comes into your life and they check all the boxes, but you're committed to the spouse who's the parent and helped you co-parent. You don't throw that away, right?
Mm-mm.
So don't throw your money away. Have the same relationship with that. It's like, don't throw it away on that $6 Starbucks. Drink some water and invest that or something. It's a daily journey, and the
Yes.
temptations never stop. And in fact, the more you have, the more temptations there are, because I could buy that. I could get that jet that I want. It's just a G6, right? I don't need right. Sorry, I'm playing in the toy game.
Oh, goodness. You're like giving me an anxiety attack because I'm getting ready to fly to Portugal, not just on commercial, but coach. I hate flying so much. And I'm like,
Benadryl.
looking at the upgrades in the first class. And I was like, oh, no, you could do this. You could fly to Portugal on a favorite
99% of the
planet.
world does that, but yeah, good for you.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. It's with my daughter who didn't want to spend money on her emergency fund. I'm taking her for her senior trip because I think she needs a little bit in her life of a little bit of splurging because she is the one who's maybe over disciplined and works really hard, and she needs to see a little bit of splurge to motivate her to maybe work harder, but also to be able to spend her money. So great conversation. I appreciate. Okay, so I always ask at the end of every show, again, how do people get a hold of you? But more importantly, like, why should somebody reach out to Jeff?
Yeah, thank you so much, Emma. This has just been seriously, it's been wonderful. I feel like you and I could talk for 2 or 3 hours, right? It's just an easy,
We could
comfortable
Joe
pace.
Rogan this thing.
Um, it's jeffarnold.com, and I'm not looking for anything from you other than to help. I mean, from anyone listening. So if there's value and you're an industry shaper, I'd love to get you on my podcast. I think I'm booked until October or November because I only do, 15 to 18 a week. But I'm fortunate to have that bandwidth or that pipeline full. Happy to get my books in your hand if you want them, anybody, or if you just have questions, happy to connect with you. I'm not seeking to sell you anything. If you think I can open a door for you, I'm there. And on LinkedIn, it's Jeffrey Arnold. Love to connect with you listeners on there, because there might be someone in my network that you might need an introduction to, and love to open any door that I can.
Awesome. Yeah, just very giving. It was really inspiring when we talked last time. I'm like, this is what most of us are aspiring to, is this version of you. To be
Awesome.
wealthy enough that we can match our best intentions to help others, that we have the time and the economic peace that we can actually reach out and do this. So thanks so much for sharing that message with my audience. And hopefully we can do it again sometime too soon. Be sure to reach out to us after the show. The value of these podcasts is the networking that it provides. And so don't be shy. Don't feel someone's too big or famous or whatever, or that we're going to secretly put you on a, automated drip campaign and fill up your inbox. Like, just reach out. Let us know what you're up to. We will point you in the right direction with resources you need. You can get in touch with me directly, investwithemma.com. It takes you right to my calendar, free appointment, whatever you need. If I can help you, I will. If not, I'll point you in the right direction. Would love to work with you after the show. And I'm very excited to hear about your next passive income adventure. So thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing your story with us.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
All right, until next week.
Hey, this was great. I loved it. Thank you so very much.